All right, 2018. What number is this for you, Pete?
Number 10, 10th one already.
Okay.
Yeah, it feels just like yesterday. It was my first one with all the jitters, and there's still some jitters, but yeah, it's been an interesting 10 years.
Well, let's talk about the interesting 10 years. Of course, you're returning as the reigning champion, but consider your first race
Mm-hmm.
and then this race. 10 years later, you had a family. Talk about the difference. I mean, we talked on the phone a bit, and you were talking now about wanting to be home, and there's some pressure there to be home. Talk about the difference of having a family integrated into a team, because it's different.
Yeah, there's a lot more things going on in life now than just dogs. Even though we try to make dogs, one of the top focuses from when we start training in the fall till now. It's important to me to try to remain as competitive as possible, and if I'm going to do this, I'm going to put as much effort into it as we can. But with that said, there's 2 kids now and different things going on, which is fun. It's a part of life, and enjoying that, being a dad and doing all that, and trying to juggle preparing a team properly and that. And so this was the first year I've stuck it out here since 2012. All the way through the season, I've ended up leaving to go somewhere else to train every year since 2012, we had a rough last month, and there was times where I was really second guessing myself, thinking I probably should pack up and leave, and almost did several times. But we toughed it out and tried to make it work the best we could. I feel like the dogs still have an adequate amount of miles. That might not have got the exact specific training I would have got if we would have had better conditions, but it is what it is, and I'm proud of myself for making it work here all year, and it's not for lack of effort. So I'm comfortable sitting here today knowing that we prepared them the best we can. That's been one of the big questions over the years, is can you have an advantage training on something like this? And I think in moderation, maybe. If you always had to train on trails like this, I don't think it's an advantage at all, probably a disadvantage, and that's why in the past years I've ended up leaving and seeking better trails, just because it's one thing to come and race on this or to train on it for a couple weeks, but to do it for months at a time, I don't see as beneficial. So when the trails had deteriorated to their worst 2 weeks ago, I felt like the brunt of my training was over with. And that they were in nearly as good a shape as they were going to be in, and then so the last 2 weeks we focused on shorter runs and trying to get them used to the ice if we can. But that all remains to be seen if they're better for it or not. It's slick. The first 20 miles is basically a ribbon of ice and snow that looks like snow, but it's ice. And then numerous lakes that are basically glare from one end to the other. And then you're always dealing with some wind around here, so wind can wreak havoc when you're trying to cross these lakes, and the dogs don't have a lot of traction. So that's the biggest concern, is the traction for the dogs, and them getting good footing and being able to work the way they normally do. So
well, and then it's a typical K300.
Mm-hmm.
Everything seems to be a certain way until starting day, and today the bottom's going to drop out of the thermometer, and it's going to get windy, and it's going to get really cold.
Yep.
So your team training in some warm stuff, and all of a sudden they've got cold stuff. How do they react to that?
I would rather go from warm to cold than cold to super warm, I think. The dogs are really, even if they haven't been training in it, they're more adapted to cold weather than warm. So I think a lot of these guys that are even coming out here, we had the warmest December on record, and we've been training in some really warm stuff, but these other guys have too. And so I don't think anybody's been training in minus 35 wind chill all year. So we'll see how it goes. I don't think it's going to be an issue. If it was 50 or 60 below, it could be hard on everybody. I think it might be hard on mushers more than anything. You kind of, as the season goes on, you get more accustomed to figuring out how to dress and covering up certain areas that get frostbitten at those temperatures. And we've been training at 25 above, seems like every day. So, you'll feel it right away if there's a spot that's getting hit by the wind.
So let's talk. So we've talked about the weather and the trail, but the biggest news of the 2018 K300 is something that's never been done before. We were not able to make the full trail.
Mm-hmm.
Can you explain the race, how it's going to take place, and then talk about why it happened and where we are, how we got to where we are today?
Yeah, well, for starters, due to the warm fall and winter we've had, the river wasn't able to freeze the way it normally does. It's frozen for the most part, but there's more open holes than what seems like there's ever been. A lot of those holes aren't marked because people haven't been able to travel to the open holes up until just recently. So I think, there was a trail to Aniak, but there was too many ways to have an accident going to Aniak, and I think they made the right call not doing that. This is definitely the safer route. It's probably not the more exciting route for mushers, but from fan standpoint, it'll give Bethel a different look at the race. It'll give Tulaksak a different look at the race. I think logistically, just off the top of my head, it seems like they should be able to pull this off easier with having vets staying in Tulaksak, and that's going to be a place where teams go through 4 times, so there'll be a little bit of shuffling teams in and out of there and where they're at in the race, but you're not having to fly vets and food to all these different checkpoints, and so I think it's going to be interesting. It's probably not something we're going to want to do every year, but to do it one year, and hopefully it doesn't become the trend, but to do it one year, it's just something we're going to have to deal with.
So talk about the race. I mean, it's not quite the Bogus Creek 150. It's different. So how's this all going to play out?
Well, the way the rest is going to be structured is going to be very similar to a normal K300.
Let's talk about the checkpoints. I mean, so you're going to go to Bethel,
Tulaksak, yeah, Bogus,
and then come back to Bethel.
Yep.
And then what happens after that?
Well, then you're going to go back and do it again, basically. So yeah, the first run is going to be up to Bogus and back to Tulaksak, which will be almost exactly like going to Kelskeg mileage-wise. And then you have your 6 hours of mandatory rest that you can start using and splitting up however you want. So however you want to start using it after that first basically 90 to 100 mile run, you can. And then you're going to come down to Bethel, and Bethel's going to be basically equivalent to Aniak, back up to Tulaksak, which is equivalent to coming back to Kelskeg, and then up to Bogus Creek again. And once you're in Bogus on that second lap, then you're basically back to where you would be on a normal route. And then it's down to Tulaksak for your mandatory 4. So rest and mileage-wise, it's structured very similarly. It's just we're going around in circles.
Well, the exciting thing for Bethel fans is that Bethel's hosting a checkpoint.
Mm-hmm.
That's never happened.
Yep.
And I know when we've been a part of a Fairbanks team where a Fairbanks start where the fans get to watch you in Nenana. That's pretty exciting for the fans, isn't it? I mean, it's something that normally we don't get to watch as spectators. We watch the start and the finish. So for Bethel fans, I think it's going to be a really fun deal.
Yeah.
Don't you?
Yeah, I think it's a different perspective of the race. You see, Bethel fans usually see the start and the finish. And now they get to see teams going through checkpoint routines and how things operate when you come into a checkpoint and what people are doing. And it's a different look at the race and how people go through some of their different routines and stuff. So it'll be interesting that way. And I think it's just another opportunity for people to learn and see how it goes.
Well, and a knowledgeable fan is a more solid fan. They come back. And so I think this is going to be really fun to watch you, eating dinner and whatever you're doing, if you decide to do that. Some teams may, Aniak and traditionally is not everybody's stopping spot. Yeah. It's a snack and go deal, so they may or may not see, but some teams will.
Yeah, I think it'll be educational for some people. It's not, some people may think you get into a checkpoint and you have a 4-hour break and you literally have a 4-hour break to go sleep. It's not how it works. It's a lot of tending to the dogs, and the actual time that you get a break in that 3 or 4 hours is very little. So it's not like pulling in with a snow machine and turning it off and walking inside.
We'll also get to see you in that race mode, that competitive mode where everybody's pretty jovial until they get to the start line, and then everybody's got the race face on. And I know when we've watched you come through Nenana, that looks like Pete Kaiser, but that's racing Pete Kaiser.
Yeah, it's different, and in Bethel here, with the way the front pack usually runs the race, it's going to likely be very quick breaks for most people, 1 to 2 hours, maybe some none, just turning around and going back out. So everybody's going to be probably fairly intense and moving quickly and trying to get everything done in that short amount of time.
Sure. As a competitor, and as this is it's a pretty good percentage to 3 out of 10 have run across the line in first place and been the champion. The second time that you ran it after winning, talk about the pressure change. I mean, it has to feel different. Everybody's gunning for the top, right?
It certainly does, and yeah, there's a certain amount of pressure that comes with this that you don't have if you're not in this position. I try to look at it as just a new year, and everything's got to start from scratch in August when we start over again, and try to look at each race differently and how we can improve. And but yeah, the pressure's there. As you get better, your expectations for yourself and your team grow, and so for me you don't want to go backwards, and it's not like not winning the race is a failure or anything, but definitely the goal is to win, and we're going to try. So yeah, the pressure's there for that one spot. There's a lot of spots that you can get, and there's one that's hard to get, and so there's a lot of pressure to try to get that.
Let's talk about the team. In the early days, you had one team you had to kind of deal with in terms of their. You didn't have enough training, to have one or two competitive teams. Now you have two teams in the 300. Talk about that shift change and talk about this year's team, or teams, I should say. Yeah,
our handler Nicholas Wickstrand, who's been great, is back again this year from Norway, and we've been training a big enough group of dogs this year to put two teams in this race, and he's got a little experience under his belt, so this is going to be his first real serious race, and so we've got a really nice group of dogs. He's going to have a few younger ones along with some older veteran dogs that have done this and Iditarod. And then my team's as good as it's ever been talent-wise. The only question is the last month of training, how that's gone. And I'm not conceding to anyone, but it's a very good team. It's probably talent-wise one of the best teams I've ever had, more leaders than I've ever had. But racing is so fickle; it's hard to make any kind of prediction in something like this.
Well, doesn't it feel good though to see the progression of the yard also?
Absolutely, I think that's the goal every year, is to, you want to improve and you want to get better and you want to see your kennel grow and become more competitive every year, and the good dogs get better, and your breeding program's successful, and all those things, stuff you do 3 years ago that's showing up now. And so yeah, it's good to see that stuff, and we're hoping for the best, and excited about it.
All right, well, good luck, Pete.
Thank you.